You're listening to the Strongpreneur Nation podcast with your host, Tom Reber.
Hey, welcome to the Strongpreneur podcast. And today I'm really excited to have a pretty unique dude on the show. Ryan Michler is, I guess, a new friend of mine over the last month that I've met through podcasts and Facebook groups and stuff like that. He runs a kick butt organization called Order of Man, and he's got some big plans for the men of the world. And so, Ryan, I wanted to welcome you to the show. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to work this out. I know we, all my doing, had some calendar snafus, but I appreciate you being patient with me, man.
No, you know what's cool is I talk to a lot of people, and so do you through the podcast, and you can always tell when you hit it off with somebody. We've had a conversation before you hit record on this episode, and I feel like we're old buddies. So I'm enjoying the conversation and look forward to having a little bit more of it today.
Me too. Well, I want to dig right in because I want to make sure that we can tell your story here and what you're doing, because my whole thing here is to help people have stronger lives, stronger businesses. And when I ran across you, I was like, this is a guy I got to have on here. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, what Order of Man is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I started Order of Man relatively recently. It was in April when I started, so 7 months ago as of right now when we're recording this. And I really started it with the goal of helping myself improve, figure out some key areas that I want to be a better man in. I've got my two boys, and I've got another boy on the way, and I've got a daughter as well. And I want to be the type of dad and the type of husband to my wife that, frankly, I never had growing up in life. And I can get into a little bit about that and my backstory there. But that's what we're doing at Order of Man. We focus on 8 key skill sets to help men improve in those areas of their lives. And I think a lot of guys are getting fulfillment from it. The message is definitely resonating because they understand that they want to be better men, but for one reason or another, they just don't know how it is that they can do that. And so we're creating a community that allows guys to share what's working, share what's not working, and have real conversations about manliness and masculinity and leadership and fatherhood and all the things that you talk about as well when it comes to business and living a fulfilled life.
So these 8 areas, what are they?
Ooh, good. You can put me on the spot here with those. Let's see how many of those I can actually remember.
All right.
I think I can get them all. We talk about them enough. So the first one is relationships. So helping develop better relationships with our families, better relationships in business. I mean, you name it. We need to develop and build relationships. So we talk about that. We talk about intellect, gaining knowledge, which is right in line with your show, right? Yep. Going out there, getting information, listening to podcasts, reading books, surrounding yourselves with mentors to gain new knowledge to help you be successful. Let's see, leadership. That's another one. That's a huge area for men. We are going to be called upon as leaders in our lives, whether it's in our families, our businesses, our communities. I coach my son's basketball, football, and baseball teams. So that keeps me super busy, but that's an opportunity for me to be a leader for them. And there's other opportunities as well. I'm flying through these. Is that all right? You just want to fly through them and then we can talk about them?
Yeah,
okay.
Tear it up.
Cool. The next one is manly know-how. So this is like the guy stuff, like the real masculine stuff, but knowing your way around a set of tools, basic plumbing, basic electrical, knowing your way around a car. But then it's also camping and survival. One of the things that's been obviously really prevalent in the news lately is terrorists and these shootings. But how are you as a man going to respond to that? There's a gentleman who unfortunately ended up being killed, but he was shielding another woman. I don't know if you read this story.
I did. I saw that. Yep.
Incredible. And those are the type of men that I want to emulate, that I want to be like, that I hope other guys want to be like. And so are you going to be the kind of man who steps up and leads people out of a situation, a horrible and horrific situation? Or are you going to be the guy that cowers in the corner?
Yeah.
And part of masculinity and being a man is stepping up and knowing how to do it when it comes to survival and emergency scenarios as well. So we covered that. Wealth, I'm a financial advisor by trade. So wealth is a big area. We hear this, money is the root of all evil, and we hear things like that, which are completely false. It's not founded. It's not based in reality. It's just not true. Money is an amazing and a powerful tool. 10,000 years ago, we used a hammer and a wheel and a rock and a bow to get what it was we wanted. And in most of the cases, it was providing food, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we need to look at money now. Money is just a tool at our disposal to use it however we can. And if we can learn how to master this tool, we can create a fulfilled life for ourselves and for our family. So we talk a lot about how to manage money, how to stay out of debt, how to invest, those type of things. We talk about fitness, What else? I think I've got 5 or 6. Oh, self-mastery, which is basically adherence to virtues, commitment, discipline, honor, integrity, all of the things that we know how to be. But at the end of the day, sometimes they're hard to execute because the natural man tends to be maybe a little lazy, wants to take the easy route, wants to shirk the responsibility. And so self-mastery is huge when it comes to fulfilling your responsibilities as a man. And the very last thing, and I always say this one last because a lot of guys will roll their eyes when I say this, is actually style.
Oh boy, look out.
Yeah. 6 months ago, 7 months ago, if you would have told me that style was actually masculine, I would have probably laughed you out of the room. But the reality is, and I've gained a lot of insights from some of the guys I've connected through the podcast and the blog, but the reality is the way that you are portraying yourself, the way that you're communicating with people, the things that you say, what you wear, how you behave, that all comes back to your style. And if you can use style, again, as a tool to help you accomplish what it is you want to accomplish and be more influential in your life, you're going to live a more fulfilled life. So part of being manly is style and the way that you come across to people.
That's good
stuff. I think I got them all. I think I got all 8.
That's good stuff, man. I think you did too, actually. So can we talk about wealth real quick?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And the reason is in my side of my business and what I'm doing and helping people, money is a huge topic. I do a lot of coaching with people, and I see the biggest one of the biggest struggles that people have in their life is over their mindset about money. And what would you say that you've seen as a financial advisor over the years of just some common things to help people with the mindset of money?
Sure. Yeah. I think the first thing is realizing and maybe even understanding some of the social conditioning that you have been led to believe. Like, for example, money is the root of all evil, which is a scripture reference. And it's actually not the entire reference. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. But we just carve out what we want to match our narrative. So what other cultural mindsets do you have that are keeping you from building wealth? If I was to ask your listeners, for example, fill in the blank to this sentence: rich people are blank. I would probably be willing to bet that the majority of people who are listening right now, hearing that, would say something like arrogant, jerks, rude, cheats, cheap, you name it, right?
Yeah.
All of these negative connotations, these negative words when you say rich people are blank. Well, if that's what you're thinking, and if your mind is automatically going there, subconsciously, you don't want to be arrogant. You don't want to be rude. You don't want to be a jerk. And so you're really, in a way, repelling the opportunity for you to build wealth and to be wealthy in your life because you don't want to be all those things.
That's good stuff, man. I always talk to people about how we project our beliefs about money onto others. And that fits right in line with that. And just that whole, I used to think that way until I got around wealthy people and started making money. And you learn the story that people have and how they've had to motor through certain things to get where they are. And I think it's Jim Rohn, the motivational speaker years ago, said, don't seek to earn $1 million to have $1 million, but seek to earn $1 million for what you're going to have to become in order to get there.
I love that. Yeah.
And that's always stuck with me. So that's cool, man. So you earlier talked a little bit about your reasoning behind starting Order of Man and what you didn't have growing up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I was 3 years old, my father left, unfortunately. And I think my father is a good man. But unfortunately, at the time, for whatever reason, he chose drugs or alcohol over being with the family and raising us and providing for us and my mother. And so he left. And then a new man was introduced into my life, a new stepfather. And this time, unfortunately, that stepfather was an alcoholic. Never abusive, but never present. And so I remember glimpses growing up of having this father-son relationship. I remember specifically working together on a Pinewood Derby car. I remember some baseball games, but those were the only couple of things I remember because he just wasn't present. He wasn't there. And so unfortunately that didn't work out. And I had a new stepfather come into my life. And this time he was verbally and emotionally abusive. So growing up, I never really had an example in my life of what it meant to be a man. How do you communicate with people? How do you be a dad? How do you be a husband? How do you be a leader in the community? I didn't have those things. And so I would look around and I would see my friends the American type dream where they'd be throwing the baseball with their dads or going camping on the weekend. And I always looked at those situations and my friends with envious eyes because I didn't have that growing up. And I realized as I started to have children with my wife that those kids are going to need something that I've never had personally in my life. And it's my responsibility, nobody else's. It's my responsibility to be that kind of person. And so I set out on this journey to be the best man that I can be. And I don't get it all right. And I'm not the expert. A lot of people will ask me that, what makes you the expert? I'm the first to tell you I'm not. I'm a guy on a journey trying to improve. I'm very aware of what's going on and I'll do everything I can to improve. And if guys want to come along the journey with me, man, I want them there because we can support and uplift each other.
So what have you learned most about yourself since you started this journey?
Wow, what have I learned most about myself? Well, we talked about this a little bit before we hit record, and I tend to be a guy who's a real doer, somebody who takes action, somebody who moves forward, whether it's with the podcast or the business, or if I see something within our family unit that needs to be accomplished, I try to get that accomplished, and I do that in business, and it's allowed me to be successful in a lot of areas of my life. But the other side of that is I tend to, and I think my wife could attest to this, maybe leave a little bit of wake of destruction in my path. And it's hard for me to be really aware of how I'm coming across to people. And I think that sometimes I'm viewed as maybe being a little too rough or being a little too hard on especially my boys. And so I've got to be very aware and try to understand what it is from their perspective. And that's something I'm always and continually working on because I want to be supportive and I want to be empathetic to what they're going through. But I also want them to be driven and motivated the same way I am.
It's a tough balance to have, isn't it? I
mean, it is. It really is.
Like you, I was in the military. I'm a Marine. And, I think that combined with just how I'm naturally wired, I have a hard time. It's not that I don't care, but showing empathy is not a strength of mine.
Right.
And, it sounds like you're in my head over here when you're saying you leave a wake of destruction sometimes. So that's,
yeah.
So I definitely relate to that, man. It's a tough balance to find.
It is. But one worth having, one worth finding, right? I mean, we've got to find balance, not only in that area of our life, but any area of our lives. It's never the one side or the polar opposite or the extreme. It's always moderation and balance, whether you're talking about money or relationships or your wealth or health, any of those things. Finding balance and moderation in those things is important.
So what are some of the words you would use to describe what a man is when one of your kids comes up to you and asks you that question?
Yeah, so we talk obviously a lot about that self-mastery. He's honorable, he has integrity, he's committed, he's disciplined. But I think the biggest definition, or maybe the best definition I can come up with, a man is a man when he becomes responsible and accountable for his own life. So I look at my boys. I've got an 8-year-old, I've got a 5-year-old, and then, like I said, we've got one on the way coming in the spring next year. And they're boys. Right? They're not responsible for their things. I mean, they've got some chores. My oldest has got to feed his dog, and they've got to get the eggs from the chicken coop, and they've got to take out the trash and things like that. But for the most part, they don't have any real responsibilities. And the other side of that is they don't really have any accountability either. For the most part, they can do what it is they want to do, and they don't really have to be held accountable. Now we have discipline and we have structure in the home, but it's different when you become a man. And so that's why I don't think man has anything to do, or being a man, has anything to do with your age. It just has to do with your station in life. And so I think as society as a whole, the reason we're not seeing males become quote unquote men is because society is telling us that they don't need to be accountable for their decisions. They don't need to be responsible for their life. Somebody else or some entity or some government will take care of it. And we see men that are older and older and older and clearly don't have any vision and don't have any execution and just aren't the kind of men that we saw 20 or 50 or 100 years ago.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I've coached high school football for about 16 years.
Wow, yeah.
And the shift I've seen in kids over that time. Even, I'm 46. And so when I played, and of course, what do? We all say back when I was a kid, all this other crap. But, cause I know we were knuckleheads too, but
of course
I think part of being a man is exactly that whole responsibility and accountability thing. That, hey, when I'm wrong, I'll take it on the chin. If I need to be corrected, I'm willing to be corrected. And I'm going to be responsible for the job that I've been given, and not pawn it off on somebody else. So I spend so much time in my football coaching, really trying to drive that home that, guys, you're going to get out of high school someday and you're going to have a family to take care of and that you're going to be accountable to.
Yeah.
And just because you don't feel like, in high school, these guys, they don't feel like going to the weight room or something to prepare for the season. I said, you don't get that opportunity when you're a grown up.
Yeah.
So
my baseball coach, when I was a senior, he told me, Ryan, you need to work, because my junior year and my senior year, I didn't play basketball. I wrestled. And he said, Ryan, you really need to, in the off season before baseball, need to work on these couple of fundamentals when it comes to the game of baseball. And so I nodded my head and I said, sure, yeah, I'll do those things. And at the end of the day, if I'm looking back on it, I didn't do those things. And he cut me. He didn't cut me from the team, but he didn't start me my senior year. And he started a junior. And it was really frustrating for me. And so I went to him and I said, Coach, somebody I really respected, I said, why am I not playing? Why am I not starting? And he looked me straight in the eye and he says, Ryan, because you didn't do the things I told you needed to do. And I can see that you hadn't improved in those areas. And we've got to do something as a team. And it was hard, man. It was hard. It was my senior year. I wanted to start. I felt like I needed to start and play with my buddies and do all those things. But at the end of the day, he was absolutely right. And I really appreciate now that he had the foresight to teach me a lesson that would serve me well over the next 60 years versus the last 3 months of baseball, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that we as leaders help other people understand those lessons in a way. I look at my sons, for example. We're in a controlled environment. I can teach them lessons and I can give them a little bit of leash for them to hang themselves in a manner without being quote unquote real life and without having all of those big drawn out consequences.
Right.
That I can do that in a shielded environment. And it's my responsibility as a father and as a leader to do those so that when they face real life, they'll be prepared for those things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's when they get out on their own, that can't be the first time that they've faced that challenge,
Exactly.
Or else they're going to freak out and not know what to do.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
So can we talk a little bit about how you're building Order of Man?
Yeah, I would love to do that.
Because so many people that listen to this are building businesses and they're wanting to have the success that you're having. And I'm watching you as an outsider, for a while here, just going, man, what you got going on is really cool. So I'd like to just kind of dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
When you started Order of Man, I know you have a career in the financial world. So what kind of time are you giving this thing each week? What's that look like?
So I take Monday off completely from my financial planning practice.
Okay.
So I'm all day Monday. I've been down here in my basement, the dungeon, all day today. We're recording this on a Monday, cranking away, doing podcasts. I had 3 podcast interviews today. I put the finishing touches on a blog post. I've sent out a dozen or so different emails for requests to be on my show and me to be on other men's shows and other podcasts as well. Social media stuff. All day Monday is consumed with that. And what I try to do is I try to schedule everything out on Mondays so that during the week, all that I'm doing is communicating with the community. So social media engagement, answering questions, responding to emails. And so I'm doing that periodically throughout the week, but nothing else like Monday. And then Friday, I also do some more administrative type stuff with Order of Man as well. So I would probably say, if I was to put a percentage on it, I would say maybe 15 to 20% of my business hours are spent on Order of Man.
Well, you're pretty dang efficient at it because it's going well. Now you've got a team of men that you have involved in helping you build this thing. How did that come about?
So when you talk about efficiency, here's why it looks like this. I was at the gym the other day with one of my buddies, and he said to me, "Man, Ryan, I can't keep up with all the posts that you're making on your Facebook group." And I kind of chuckled to him, and I said, "Well, I'm not. That's not me." And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I post maybe once or twice every day, every couple of days. I don't really post all that much." And he says, no, I get alerts all day long. And I said, that's not me. Those are the other guys posting on there. So it looks like it's coming from me. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you're going to build a business and you're going to leverage it, because right now it's me. I don't have a team. My wife helps me, and it's me. There's nobody else. And in order to make this successful, and in order to leverage my time and my abilities, I've got to enlist the help of other guys. And it's embedded into what I'm doing, all the way down to the name of our brand, which is Order of Man, a society, a fraternity, a group, a collection of men all working to improve. So I didn't call it Order of Ryan or Look How Great I Am. I called it Order of Man. So any man is welcome to come on board, welcome to help, welcome to participate in the conversation. And we're able to leverage our own unique abilities in a way that I could not do on my own. And they couldn't, frankly, do it on their own either.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening to this and you're a man, I highly suggest I'll put the links in the show notes here for you to check out the Order of Man Facebook group. But there's some really good stuff going on there, some great topics. Ryan, it was funny. You asked a question about what are you going to do this week? What do you need to get done, or something along those lines? And I typed some things in, and then the next morning you were like, "All right, Tom, how's it going? Did you do this?" It's just a great it's a great community of guys that are pushing each other, so and holding each other accountable, and also there for support. There's been some pretty heartsy posts and things that I think guys sometimes have a hard time talking about, and so I've appreciated that community that you're building.
And I think anybody who's listening as well probably can take a lesson from that to realize that in order to leverage yourself, in order to build what it is you're building, whether it's working with entrepreneurs, business owners, men in my case, whatever that situation is, give people an opportunity to be real. Be real with them. Be authentic with them. Give them an opportunity. Give them a voice in a time like we are right now, where everybody has access to social media and Facebook and Periscope and podcast, and everybody has their own opportunity to be on a platform. If you can build the platform for them and allow them to do what it is they want to do, which is to talk about their issues and the things that are going well, I think you're going to have a lot of success in doing that.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of I heard an old radio host, I wish I could remember who it was, interviewed, and he had this AM talk radio show that had been going on forever, and they asked, how have you been able to, last so long in this industry? And he says, a successful show like this is only successful because we've learned how to give our audience the microphone.
Yeah.
And again, I just thought that was a great analogy of just picturing, okay, let's let the people be part of this thing. And that's why
I like your brand, Tom, too, is because, Strongpreneur Nation, right? Mm-hmm. You're alluding to the fact that this is all of us. We're all included. Let's take this journey together, not it's the Tom Reber show. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I think you're onto that as well. Yeah,
and I'm just jazzed because I'm watching you. I think you're a couple laps ahead of me as far as the community building, and so it's cool because I get to watch it happen and learn from it, and hopefully save myself a bunch of trouble.
Well, I'll let you know if I run into any. You'll be the first to know, so you don't have to go through the same traps or pitfalls that I have.
So, has there been a time? And I know you said you really only got this off the ground about 7, 8 months ago. Yeah. Has there been a time that you've just been really insecure about something you're doing in it?
Yeah, I think somebody asked me this the other day. They said, has there ever been a time where you wanted to quit doing this? Mm-hmm. And I mean, quite honestly, if I'm willing to throw in the towel after 7 months, then I never really had any conviction about it anyways. So the answer to that is no. There's never been a time up to this point where I've wanted to quit. But I've had some apprehension about monetizing for some reason. So I started, like I said, in April, so 8 months ago, I guess now. And up to this point, it's really been about building the community, building the organization, building the infrastructure, getting some content out there. And right now we're starting to monetize. But I've had some apprehension into, how do I do that? Do I do ads? Do I get sponsors for the podcast? Do I do membership community? Do I do a retreat? So there's been a lot of apprehension around that. In addition to how to price things, that's been a challenge as well. And I think I've done some mastermind groups. I've done one already, which I completely underpriced, which was fine. I knew I did because I wanted some valuable feedback from some good guys. And so I think we as entrepreneurs tend to have a hard time transitioning into monetizing it. So if I was to do it over, I would suggest that you consider how you're going to do that right as you start rather than transitioning into it 6 months later. I would also be very clear on what your value is. And I think the way that we can get that value is by looking at what other people are doing and the value that they're providing and seeing where they're pricing things and not selling ourselves short. Not only does it sell ourselves short, but it also tells people that maybe this just isn't worth what I thought it was if we're pricing them too low.
Where do you see it going?
I literally want to build the world's largest community for men. That's my goal. Now, what does that look like? I don't know. And a lot of people will say, what does Order of Men look like over the next 5 years or 10 years? I don't know what it's going to look like next week, let alone what it's going to look like in the next 10 years, if I'm being honest and truthful with people. I know that this is a passion of mine. I know that this is something the world needs, and I'm building out the infrastructure to make sure to support that mission. Things are always changing. That's one of the things that we're keenly aware of in today's technological environment. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but my goal is to bring together millions of men that can support and uplift each other and help each other through hard times and help each other succeed in whatever area of life that is.
Yeah, that's a and it's one step at a time. It's It's just you're moving ahead. You don't have to have it all mapped out. So there's that balance between having somewhat of a strategy and a plan, but then not being paralyzed by that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
What do you feel you what are you best at, and what do you need the most help with when you're building your business here? I
am best at executing, just like you, Tom. We talked a lot about this, and we already covered this in the podcast too. I'm best at executing. I really believe that we have moments of inspiration in our lives. I believe it comes from God. It doesn't matter what you believe, where it comes from. The fact of the matter remains that we have moments of inspiration. And for us not to act on those is unfortunate. And there's too many people out there who have ideas and who have passions and who have excitement. And for whatever reason, most of the time is it fear, they don't move forward on it. So if anything, I'd rather make the mistake, and I have in the past, of moving too fast. And it's cost me time. In some cases, it's cost me money to realize that maybe I'm going down the wrong track. But I'd rather do it in action than sitting on the fence. So that's one area that I'm really good at. I think the second part of that question was what's one area that I'm going to need to work on or need some help in. And that's just like you, the administrative side, the details, the minutia that is extremely, extremely important as you're building a business, but it's just not something I'm way excited about. So I'm going to need to enlist the help of other people to cover those bases for me.
Well, maybe you and I can split a VA or something.
We'll need to, because I think you and I based on this conversation and the conversations we've had before, you and I are a lot alike.
So let's talk about content. You produce a lot of it, and I think I shot you a message last week, and I asked you something about how you plan and schedule your content. Yeah. Because I know the people that are listening to this, if they've listened to me more than once, they know that I'm a big fan of producing content and pulling back the curtain and letting people know you and meeting needs and adding value and all that stuff that content does. So how do you go about planning it? How do you, where do you put it? What's that look like?
So this is a really good question, because I think if you listen to every entrepreneurial type podcast out there, they have a really nice, neatly packaged answer, and they have this content creation calendar, and they schedule things months out ahead. And this is going to speak to my strength, but also my weakness. That's not something I'm great at, but I am great at putting content out there. And the way that I do it is I use a tool called Evernote, which I'm sure you're familiar with, right? Yeah. So I use Evernote, and like I said, I have random moments of inspiration every day, all day long. And if I keep those things in my head, it just bogs down and it gets frustrating and overwhelming. So what I do is I've created an Evernote. I've created a calendar for my content. So for the blog, for the podcast, and for the videos that I'm doing. And so every time I have a moment of inspiration on a certain topic, maybe I see a billboard and it triggers something, or maybe it's a conversation with a friend that asks me a question. I think, I can answer that. I'll go ahead and I'll jot those ideas as podcast titles or blog titles or video titles, and each one of those, their corresponding folder. And then as I know I need to get content out there, I'll go through that folder and I'll say, okay, what's going on in the world? What's going on in the community? What's going on with men right now? And what topic do I feel like is going to be best at this point in time? I pull that out. I start putting together the content and get it out as quickly as I possibly can.
And yeah, we're very similar, because I keep a legal pad here on my desk. Mm-hmm. And as I'm working, my mind is moving a million miles a minute, and I jot ideas down. I have Evernote where I put ideas. I use voice memos if I'm driving.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And because I'm just, it feels like 24/7. My mind is just moving. In fact, there was one night last week where I went to bed at 10 o'clock. I laid there till 2. Couldn't fall asleep, got up, came downstairs, had a shot of whiskey, and wrote a blog post.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
And then I fell asleep, for the next couple hours till I had to get up and slept like a baby. But, I was just curious because you seem to be consistent. So on Mondays, that's your day to really produce the content. You'll just kind of go back to your list of stuff. Yeah. And just go, okay, what's working for me today? Yeah,
that's right.
That's fair.
Yeah, and so I plug it in. My wife helps me on that a little bit too. We actually just released a blog post, gift giving guide for the ladies in your life is what we called it. And I wouldn't have thought about that on my own, because that wouldn't have even been on my radar. Yeah. And so my wife said, hey, Ryan, you really ought to consider writing a post like this. So we put together that post. And when I say we, I mean she put it together, because I had no clue, which is basically she was giving me her Christmas list is what she was doing. And it worked out good. So it's going to serve me well because I have her Christmas list, and it's going to serve the other guys well. So I get some help like that. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, hey, fly by the seat of your pants. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but here's what I realize is that we spend so much time as entrepreneurs consuming all of the podcasts, all of the blog posts, all of the videos, all of the everything, the emails, everything that's out there. Mm-hmm. And we think that, well, I got to do it like Tom. He's successful, so I got to do it like him. Yeah. Or, Ryan does it that way. Well, that's the best way to do it. Or Pat Flynn or John Lee Dumas or whoever it is. And the reality is they found a system. Each one of us has found a system that works well for us. So what I would suggest is incorporate the best of that's out there and schedule it into your life the way that works for you. We all learn different. We all communicate different. We all work on different schedules. Mm-hmm. Just make something that works for you. But the key is that you can do it consistently for long periods and over a sustained period of time. That's what's going to help you be successful.
So how do you decide how to market your content? You write a blog or you do a video. Then what do you do with it? What's your approach?
So here's what's really interesting. I've got the Facebook community, the Facebook group that's up, and I will ask quite a bit of questions on there, and I really try to track what's popular and what's resonating with guys and what isn't. So based on the responses, the number of engagement and responses that I get, I know pretty much how that article or that video or that blog post is going to be received. Right. So I use that as an opportunity not only to communicate with the guys in the organization, but also as a opportunity to test new ideas. So I'm not going to put something out there that hasn't already been tested and isn't already getting a lot of response and engagement about. Yeah. So I think that's part of it. What are you going to write about in order for it to be relevant to your audience, specifically for your audience? So that's the first part. Now you asked me about how do I market it?
Yeah, so it might have been Pat Flynn or one of those guys who said, you create a blog post, but you spend 80% of your time marketing that content to the world. And I'm curious what you do to market yours.
I take the typical social media outlets, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Instagram's actually been really good for me lately, so that's kind of interesting to see. But I've also got some channels. One of the things I did when I started is I went to a conference, Men's Style Con, which was in March. So it was right before I launched Order of Man. And I went out there and I networked and I rubbed shoulders with 17, 20, 30 different guys who were having a lot of success in the men's style space. So fashion blogging and style for men. And I came back and I put together an article, 17 sites every guy needs to know about. And I highlighted each one of the guys who I met and who already had a well-established brand. And what I did is I communicated with those guys and I said, hey guys, I'm going to put together this resource. I need one quote from you on what it means to be a man. And I am going to highlight your quote and I'm going to paint you in a positive light because I like you. I like your message. I like your brand. I like your business. And I'm going to highlight you. So I put that information out there. And that post alone is infinitely better than any other post as far as engagement and visibility because I involved other people.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key when it comes to marketing is involve other people. So these guys who I went to bat for, who didn't need me to do that necessarily, but they saw that I was serious about the business and I went to bat for, they are now sharing other content that I put out there simply because they want to help me succeed because I've helped them succeed.
Yeah.
So when it comes to marketing, find ways to leverage yourself. Get a Facebook group going, build a community that of men or whoever your audience is that want to share your information because it makes them feel important as well.
How long did it take you to put that post together?
Oh, not very long. Maybe a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours after all was said and done. I had to send out some emails. They responded back periodically and they sent me their headshot as well. And I just went through and wrote a quick, 2 or 3 paragraphs on each one of those, put it together and put it out there.
That's cool. Time well spent, man.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you this. What's your wife's name?
Trisha.
Trisha?
Just Trisha.
Trisha,
I said,
okay.
Just
okay.
Trisha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trisha.
Better make sure I correct that.
Yeah. What is... I'll ask. I have 2 questions. I'll roll them into one, and you say whatever you want.
Okay.
So, what does she think of this order a man thing, and how has, if at all, has your relationship with her changed since you've been doing this?
Perfect. Yeah, she really likes Order a Man, and what's interesting is I actually get a lot of response from women who are very grateful for the site as well, even though we don't talk about or to women really at all. Mm-hmm. And it's not to exclude them. It's just that I know more about being a man than I know about being a woman.
Yeah.
So I talk about that. So she's extremely, extremely supportive. She sees the passion that I have for it. She's got faith in me, and unfortunately I've been successful in other ventures, and so I'm able to help her see that this will be successful as well. I think generally speaking, and in my experience, I don't want everybody to hold me to this, but I think men are probably willing to take a little bit more risk, again, generally speaking, when it comes to business than women are. So for me, it's been important that I share with her the vision and important for me to share with her how it's growing and how it's doing. So she's very involved in the conversations. She's very involved in the process because I value her opinion, but I also want her to take comfort knowing that this is working and that it's growing and it's doing what we want it to do. So that being said, working together is a difficult thing at times for us because we're both those driver type personalities. And so she's got her way of doing things and I've got my way of doing things. And so that's been challenging at times, but figuring out how to work together and figuring out how to communicate with her about this and let her know that there's still going to be balance there. That's one of the hard things for us is that at times she'll need to remind me, hey, Ryan, it's about time to turn off this order a man stuff and focus on the family. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while she'll say, along the lines of, hey, you're teaching men how to be better men. And she always does this with tact, but she says, you're teaching men how to be better men and how to be better fathers and husbands. And you're so focused on this business stuff right now that maybe you're not really doing what you're telling the guys to do. So I need you to come back to us. And so she really balances me out that way.
Is there a time of night that you usually shut down the screens and the social media and things like that?
Yeah, so when I come home, which is 5:30, 6 o'clock from the office, I pretty much try to shut everything off at least until the kids go to bed. Mm-hmm. Once the kids go to bed, which is usually about 8 o'clock or so, my wife and I will spend some time together. She's got her own projects and things she's working on as well. So we'll usually split up and do our own things for however long it is we need to do that, and then reconvene and read or watch a movie together or whatever it may be. So I try to keep the electronics off between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. and so I can give my full and undivided attention to my wife and kids.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely an area that I need to get better in.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Everybody does.
I'm always on. And it's funny because I have 2 teenage boys and a 10-year-old daughter, and I get upset with them because they're always on screens, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's me.
Yep.
So in fact, my daughter, a couple of years ago, came up to me. She says, Dad, how come every time I see you, you have a laptop on your lap? You know? And that was like, ooh, boy.
The key for me has been to find boundaries. So I mentioned to you that I stay home, and I think this is going to be valuable for those who are entrepreneurs or who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs, is finding boundaries. So when I'm home on Monday, I actually put a little sign on my door, especially if I'm recording a podcast, that says recording. And my kids know that if that's on there, they can't come in and ask me any questions or ask me to play or anything like that, because I'm recording. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think if I'm going to ask them to give me some space so I can accomplish this thing, then I think it's important for me to return the favor when I tell them, hey, guys, at 5 o'clock, I'm all yours. And if I'm not all theirs, which happens occasionally, I'm not really upholding my end of the deal. So create your boundaries. Is there office time that you have? Is there time where you shouldn't be disturbed? And if that's the case, what's the time that you're going to give your undivided attention to your family? And having those boundaries and not crossing those boundaries really helps create the balance that I think a lot of people and entrepreneurs are struggling to find, but they're looking for.
And I think, and I appreciate that, because I think so much of, if I'm just looking at my own life, the way I use my own time, there are times that I can be amazingly inefficient.
Oh, yeah.
But then there's other times where just in a couple, 3 hours a day, I'll accomplish a week's worth of content. Mm-hmm. And I think it just comes back to just, when you're on, you got to be on, and you got to be focused, and you got to get your stuff done. No excuses.
Yes.
And then when it's time to be off, you got to be off. And so, and again, I'm just preaching to myself here more than anything, is just really being clear on what I need to get done each day, what that low hanging, high impact fruit is every day. Low hanging fruit, high impact stuff. That's what I meant to say.
Right. I knew what you meant.
You got me, right?
Yeah.
But when I approach it, when I have a day that I don't have a clear focus or clarity on what that needs to look like, I'm really inefficient. And then I feel, like I have to stay on longer throughout the day and things like that. So,
right.
But that's good stuff. So let me ask a couple last questions here, I guess, that are rolling around in my brain. Imagine you got 5 minutes in front of a group of entrepreneurs. You're going to get 5 minutes, and you're going on in 5 minutes from now.
Right. Okay.
You're totally on the spot.
Let's see what we can do.
What do you want them to walk away with after they hear you run your mouth for 5 minutes?
I don't even think I'd need 5 minutes. I think the bottom line is stop thinking so much and start taking action. That's the end of it. I mean, that's really what separates the people who are successful from the people who are unsuccessful. We can have plans, and we can have information, and we can have access to information, and we can have all the best plans and strategies and techniques and tactics in the world. But at the end of the day, if you don't utilize those strategies, you're never going to succeed. So I'm totally comfortable with being outside of my comfort zone and being outside of my element, and even to an extent winging it. Even though people might see that and might understand that, I'd much rather do that and mess up real time than create the perfectly laid plan that never gets executed.
Sounds like a periscope I just heard from you.
I may have covered that. That's a reoccurring thread line through my content for sure.
Yeah. Implement, get it done. Quit thinking about it.
That's
I love it. So I was going to ask, my next question is going to be, I have a Strongpreneur pledge I ask people to take, and there's 5 promises.
Okay.
And I sent you a link in the Skype note thing feature here in case you want a refresher. But you may have already answered that. But out of these 5 promises, and I'll read them if people don't know what they are. The first is I believe that if you want to succeed, have a stronger life and stronger business, it comes down to making a pledge and a few things here. One of them is I will shut up. That talk is cheap, and what matters is what I get done. 2 is I will do what I say I'm going to do. No more broken promises. Number 3, I'll be hungry for mentoring. I can't see everything, and I'll invite others into my life for that accountability and encouragement. Number 4 is I'll make no excuses, and because I understand if it's important to me, I'll find a way. And if not, I'll find an excuse. And number 5 is I'll have fun. I'm going to enjoy the ride. I'm going to lighten up. And if I'm not having fun, something's got to change. So out of those, what would you say resonates with you the most?
Oh, that's hard because all of them are so good. I actually just pulled it up online here too, and I'm looking at it. I got to say number 1. I mean, I'm going to reiterate that. I will shut up. What matters is what I get done. I will talk less and do more. I think that's what it's all about. Do. You've got to take action. You've got to move forward. Number 1 is my pick.
Mm-hmm. I love it, man. Well, listen, before we wrap up, first thing is I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us today and adding a ton of value to the Strongpreneur Nation. Second thing is I just want to give you a shot to let us know where we can find you, what you want us to do when we get there.
Sure, yeah.
And all that.
Yeah, you bet. Well, hey, Tom, I appreciate you, and I know you're going to come on my show as well. I'm looking forward to having you there. There's a lot of guys who want to become better entrepreneurs and want a more fulfilling life. So I'm excited to have you on as well, and I appreciate the opportunity. The best thing you can do if you want to track us down is head to our home base is orderofman.com. You can check out some of the podcasts and articles there. If you're interested in joining our Facebook group, which is where all the real discussions are happening, Tom, you can attest to that. Mm-hmm. You can go to facebook.com/groups/Order of Man. And then I'm on, Instagram and Twitter at Order of Man. So you can find us. You can track us down. But I'd love to see it on the website, and I'd love to see you in the group.
That'd be great. Now, like I said earlier, we'll definitely put all that in the show notes so that you guys can easily link to it. And with that, Ryan, I appreciate you hanging out with us, man. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you next time, man.
Thanks, Tom. You too.
All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Do me a favor. Head over to Order of Man and subscribe to Ryan's email list. Join the Facebook group if you're a man and you're digging this stuff. Remember, talk is cheap, like Ryan was saying. So what matters is what we get done. So do something today. Take some action to make yourself a stronger man, a stronger individual. And with that, don't forget also that if you have not already taken the Strongpreneur Pledge, head over to strongpreneurnation.com and make that happen as well. Join the Strongpreneur Nation community so that you can level up in your life and in your business. We'll see you next time. Travis, bring in the guitars. Hey, Strongpreneur Nation, if you like this episode of the Strongpreneur Nation podcast and you want to get more stuff to help you build a stronger life and a stronger business, to deal with the head trash, get back your time, build a kick-butt brand, get more crap done, then I encourage you to join the Strongpreneur Nation Mastermind Group. It's a private, closed group on Facebook that I would love to have you be a part of, where we can talk about anything and everything to help you get stronger in what you're doing in your business. So head over to Facebook, type in the Strongpreneur Nation Mastermind Group and request access, and we'll let you in after we teach you the secret handshake. All right, we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks.